Hey darlings. Lyudmila and Misha were friends since early childhood. It so happened that the guys' houses were standing opposite each other in the village. For the games, and so Misha and Mila grew up together as friends and trusted in each other's secrets. There were not many people in their village. After the collapse of the collective farm, many people left or simply died of old age and diseases without surviving the free flight regime. The old people mostly survived, and those who simply had nowhere else to go and had no one to count on. Misha and Mila's families were just like these. Father Lyudmila just didn't have time to get any education at the time because he was the eldest son in a large, multi-parent family and had to help his parents with their numerous offspring. He started working early on the farm, then gradually got married and stayed in his native village, so as not to be separated for long and far. All his younger brothers and sisters, and there were as many as 9 of them, grew up and left for cities and villages. Only he was left by his parents. After he had seen his parents, he became the owner of their house and lived with his own family. Luda's mother was a bit more lucky in life. Her family was not rich. That's why the girl had a bit more freedom in childhood, deprived of the household chores, and the youth was different. After the end of the local 8-year-old, the parents took their daughter to the district, where she received a training in sewing. It was so lucky that she was hired by a local professional technical school. Her fabric was found in the district and even in the capital, and she lived with a young seamstress. Everything was fine with her, but she didn't have love. She dreamed of going to the city, staying there, and working in an atelier. But she didn't have anything with such dreams. But she met somehow at the dances in the neighborhood house of culture with her pasha. They had a love, and already a year later they were happy about the birth of their daughter Lyudmila. Her parents dreamed that in their family they would grow not only a daughter, but also sons. Yes, that's a disaster. They couldn't do it, and they were treated and traveled to different places. And even to consultations with the professors in the capital, Pavel took his wife. But it didn't work out, and that's it. Doctors wrote this on the consequences of the first births, very severe and traumatic, since the medical system in the district hospital was far from ideal. Well, if that's the case, they decided that they should be happy at least with the fact that they have a daughter and give her everything they could give to other children. Therefore, Mila from early childhood knew nothing about refusal. And she had a toy, even if at it. He brought dolls from the district and from the city. And it happened that he himself, remembering childhood and adolescence, made something from wood or clay. Horses, whistles, fluggers. Everything was in his favor. He was not far behind his mother and husband, who with her efforts created real doll masterpieces for his daughter. Not in the whole district. There was no doll with such a rich and diverse wardrobe as Mila's. There was nothing but her small toy wardrobes, and summer outfits and winter outfits, and a variety of dresses, a whole chest, and even fluffy swimsuits. Everything could be found in her closet. She was a greedy girl, so she often gave out or just let other girls play with the outfits of her dolls. Mom immediately sewed something new for her daughter. Interesting. Celebratory. Having grown a little older, Mila began to take her mother's sewing experience. At first, her products were a little sloppy and clumsy, but then they became better and better, more original and unusual. So the girl learned not only to play, but also gradually found her calling in life. As for Misha, his fate was not in vain. His parents married him for his youth and stupidity. They had never seen a mature life, but they brought their son into the world. It cannot be said that Michael was completely unwanted and unloved, but his father was always with him in every possible way. And his mother was often indifferent about where her son was running and when he would return for lunch, since the family of his parents was purely nominal, and the warmth and love of the child still wanted to be impatient. Misha often ran to the kindergarten to the neighbors, to Lyudmila and her relatives, and spent a lot of time there. The children became so friends that Pavel even told his wife that this is how it turned out. They gave birth to one daughter, and it turned out that two were growing up. Wait a minute, Mila will grow up and bring her son-in-law to the orphanage. Usually people answered to their mother, and the husband hugged her and answered something like this. Is there really only blood for our own daughter? Let's not try too hard. Let's not make it so that everything is the best for her. Don't talk too much. Everything will be fine with our Milka. Time went by. The children grew up. At first, Misha and Mila just got used to spending time together, and then this habit grew into a strong bond and even some kind of addiction. And now they can't imagine how one can exist in a single day. In school, Misha and Mila had been teasing each other for a long time. They were making dough, a bride and a groom, a bride in a dress, a groom at work. But the guys got used to ignoring such pranks and all sorts of other jokes in their addresses. They just did what they could best. Namely, they were friends. And they were really friends, as if they were already quite grown up. And with all responsibility approached to understanding such a gentle and fragile feeling as friendship. Michael was a tall, strong, beautiful, and good guy. Even from middle school, he always easily won in all sports competitions and fun starts, which was organized by the local rural school. He did not have competitors in the fact that it was easier for everyone else to remove the harvest of an elderly neighbor, help the garden of a young Uncle Kolya, to solve all problems on the pacifier of some friend of his father. He was often attracted to some socially important work in the village, to the saboteurs, and always highly appreciated Miss Hin's contribution to the common cause. Of course, the parents who lived all their lives like a cat with a dog, but it apparently did not affect the child, which means that a good, kind guy will be a groom at least. Mila was so angry, of course, that this guy gave her the same preference in games, in school, and in work. Not once in their school life did Mila carry her own bag with her shoes or even a backpack with heavy textbooks. Mikhail always came to the bank. He met her at his parents' house, took her knife, helped her cope with hooligans or other violators of peace, and was always on her side. It was reliable and willing to have such a defender behind her back. As for Luda herself, she also did not imagine her existence without visible evidence of the presence of Mikhail in everything she did or dreamed of. The girl is so used to the fact that she has a reliable, almost talkative, but very strong and loyal defender in any situation, and was already pleased with the fact that they were friends with Misha. At a young age, the degree of trust between Mila and Misha was beyond the limit. They not only knew each other's little secrets, but also seemed to be able to feel each other at a distance. If one was bad, the other would immediately come to the garden under the old, scattered pair to their place, where they met in childhood. There, Father Mila equipped the guys with something like a small wooden besetka, and it was on the hard-working benches that they sat day and night, advising each other, arguing and agreeing with each other. Mila was quite calm about the gossip that the village guys rewarded them with Mikhail. She didn't really depend on the opinion of the people around her, and therefore she was exactly listening to rumors that they had become very close, not like friends. That besides his mother and father, he really only has one true friend, that is Misha. Or maybe not a true friend at all, because by this age, the need to love and be loved was in the hearts of the young girl. They became a couple in love at this time. Either the age really came, or they just realized and thought everything that was going on with them. No matter what, from the 9th grade Misha and Mila became inseparable not only as friends, but also as lovers. The school didn't make it difficult for Michael or for Luda, but time passed, and it was time to decide what to do next and what profession to choose for the future. If Misha was almost sure that he wouldn't try to enter the city, and the possibility of the boy's family not teaching him there, if it was the case, then everything was much more difficult with Mila. For his beloved and only daughter, Mom and Dad could try and pay for education at any university, at any faculty, by choice. Dad earned good money from the girl, and Mom, with her almost designer clothes, carefully invested her money into family budget. So the most wonderful prospects in Mila's life were to open up, to learn, to get out of the village, to become who she always dreamed of being. It was more complicated. First, the girl wanted to become a doctor, so that she could be brought to the hospital even from abroad. But eventually, the love for medicine was over, as if she had never been there. Then there was the passion for clothing design, and as a result, the desire to become a medalist to her mother. But then, time showed that no, she did not want this love. Then the girl began to dream about she liked working with children, but unfortunately, the unprofitability and the problem of the profession put their mark on this desire. Mila quickly changed her mind to become a teacher. But none of her relatives knew what the girl was guided by when choosing a future profession. Not in the last turn did she think about how she would study, and whether she will have to leave her beloved Misha here for a long time, completely alone. In her opinion, this would be wrong. As a result, after many years of thinking, Mila made a decision to stay in her native village and enter the district. There she will be able to study at the accountant or secretary at the school, and will live her life peacefully. With Mikhail, nobody could imagine how happy was Misha himself when Mila made this decision. They were already finishing 11th grade at that time, and the boy was walking in the clouds. The last school bell will ring for them, and he will go to the army. And Mila, his beauty Mila, will go to study in the city. And who knows if her city life will be surrounded, and if there will be some lost city boy who will take away his people. And then the girl herself, as if she had made a gift for him, briefly and clearly informed her decision. I didn't think of going anywhere. I'll stay here. I'll wait for you. Misha was clearly not prepared for such a turn of events, but he was very pleased. And then, immediately, right then, at the same minute, he made a meal of suggestions, hands, and heart. He voiced what he had long wanted to say, but he didn't dare to talk to her about it at all. Mila, will you become my wife when it's all over? I'll come back from the army. You'll probably be able to learn it then. Will you? I will. Mila shot him with serious gray eyes. They were sitting on the edge of the cliff, and under their feet all kinds of herbs were growing. Spring, as if by a moment of a magic wand, called them out of the basement. At the same time, it seemed to Misha that not one heart was beating in his chest, but 10 or even 100. And all of them were happy with this simple word, with the simple answer of their beloved. Michael hugged the girl behind her back, and so they sat until the evening. In silence, in the smells of servants, honey, blown by the light spring breeze. It seemed that happiness was near. Just touch it, and you will get everything you've dreamed of all your life. When the study was over, Mila took her documents to the school in the district, and of course she was accepted right away. Strictly speaking, all the members of the reception commission were quite surprised by this miracle. From some point on, girls from wealthy families, and even round the clock, and he will be waiting for him from the army. Otherwise, it can't be. The summer flew by unnoticed. The first summer of their love. And Misha and Mila felt a long separation, which was inevitable because of the spring call to the army, and they tried to enjoy communication in advance, to breathe, to talk to each other. For days, the lovers who were in love, of course, Misha didn't forget to help his parents with the household and future father-in-law and mother-in-law. But still, they tried to give their time to each other. At the same time, Mila was brought up in old and very strict rules. Therefore, the only thing that allowed themselves to be in love was to hold hands and sometimes kiss unwittingly, quite easily, almost like a child. But this closeness was also something imaginary for Mikhail. To be loved. Not once, not twice. Lovers used to dream about how their life would turn out after Misha would serve in the army and return to his native village, and Mila would study at the accounting school. They agreed to marry right after the guy returned, and then they would have children. Misha wanted their son to be born first, and even came up with his name. Vasily. Vasily Mihailovich. How does it sound? Mila, of course, dreamed more about her daughter, but did not say it aloud. In the end, they agreed that it does not matter how the firstborn will be in the papal family. The main thing is that he is healthy, beautiful, and happy. And everything else is the 10th thing, not the most important. Despite the fact that this house was not too big, there were only 3 rooms, a warm veranda, and a kitchen. There was something so charming, interesting, and dear in it. His mother and father put it up specifically for their daughter's family, and they provided everything there as Mila wanted. And she, of course, did not forget to consult with the groom. And the planning there was convenient for them. And the size of the rooms was thought out, and all communications were also conducted. Live your life and be happy. Having such a reliable background, you could live many years without worries and anxiety. And Misha and Mila understood how lucky they were to find each other and valued their relationships very much. They never even quarreled in the years of their acquaintance and never raised their voices to each other. In the family, the girl was generally used to talking calmly, gradually enduring. And as for Misha's family, he intended to make every effort to not repeat the fate of his parents. He absolutely did not like that they were swearing day and night, without paying attention to anything but their swearing. Soon it was autumn. It rained. The roads were washed away. In such not very festive weather, Mikhail was arranged to be sent to the army. The whole village was walking on these wires, and Misha did not forget to tell everyone that Mila stays in the village as his bride, and that the first thing he will do when he returns is to take her to the registry office, where they will come out as a legal husband and wife. Mila almost cried, but not because she was cruel and senseless, but because she intended to write to her beloved as often as possible and visit him when allowed. She understood that such a long separation is not at all what they need both, but means you need to act decisively. And the separation really didn't become something terrible and irreversible for Misha and Mila. Maybe young people tried to call each other, see each other, and write each other. Time went by, and the girl, as self-willed as she was in the first week, wrote to her boyfriend in the army, and he, as always, answered her. Their letters were pierced with mutual love and respect. That was clearly felt. These two will be able to convey their feelings through their whole lives. Mila, meanwhile, studied in the district, in the school, as she initially intended. Of course, other guys were constantly following her to the line. After all, she was a beautiful, stately girl. She knew how to speak well, and her character was patient, modest. But the girl rejected all the care and reminded those who forgot to dance in the local club on the eve of the festival that there is only one of them waiting for him, his only Michael, and it means that it's not suitable for her to walk with strangers. Gradually, everyone got used to the fact that Mila could not be invited to dance. It still wouldn't go. She wouldn't agree. She loved her bear very much. A year flew by unnoticed, and Mila began to prepare for the meeting of her beloved from the army. He just wrote to her the day before that he remembers, waits, loves, and asks to start preparing his wedding dress to be So Misha didn't forget about his intention to marry her. The heart of Mila danced the kinkana in the chest of the girl, and she was ready to fly high, high above the trees, above the gray clouds that had covered the sun since morning. There was no one in the world who would be happy now, sincere and fresh as she is. The fashion of her most wedding dress, the girl thought about it more than once and more than twice. She consulted with her mother, changed something, added something. It turned out just what she wanted. Gorgeous, decalcified, decorated with rhinestones and sewn on a lace. In a word, exactly what all the C****** will discuss. Their village's friends came back a couple of months after the wedding. Mila and her mother went to the city, bought everything necessary for the start of the work, and started sewing, weaving, sewing, and decorating. Misha asked on the phone every time, if the dresses were ready, and reminded that as soon as the door of the city house will open, they will go to the village council with Mila. So, the wedding is to be. Mila saw that her parents were not against this wedding. They understood, of course, that they were giving their daughter to a man from a much poorer family than their own. But the long-time friendship also deserves something. Well, besides, Misha grew up in front of them, so they didn't expect any surprises from him. As they say, they knew him as a crazy one. Mila was happy and full of hope, and this meant that she would marry her parents. They treated their daughter-in-law and Michael's parents well. Of course, they understood that they gave a lot to their daughter's neighbors, and housing and cattle, and the future son-in-law will surely help Milken. So the reason to be angry at their son and not approve his choice was not with Michael's parents. It hurts him, one might say, to be lucky in life. And they, if you think so, will have a son under supervision. She won't go anywhere without help. If necessary, she will always come to help. In short, it's a great option. That's why Mila was welcomed by her parents, invited to the house, and called her dear daughter-in-law. She liked it, and even licked it. She wanted to have a good relationship with her in-laws. They are like many in their village, and not friendly. The long-awaited day of Misha's return to his native Pinate was sunny and sunny. Michael barely seemed to turn away from the turn, as if he had not suffered, ran out to him for a meeting. She hugged him in a big way, poked her face into his broad chest, and cried out of happiness. What does he see, finally, after so many days of separation? Misha, apparently, imagined their meeting in the same way, because he threw his things right into the dust and hugged the girl who had fallen for him with both hands. Something gently whispered to her, said something, stroked her hair on her back. In short, the meeting turned out to be the most heartwarming and warm. Some old women even shed a tear when they were told how they would meet again after a long separation of Misha and Mila. In the evening, Mikhail had no choice but to leave the house. And from their village and from the neighbors came friends and friends to ask about the service, to see how he was getting married, just to say a couple of words. But Misha was indifferent to almost everyone. Most of all, Mila was busy with him and her. Stories about how she lived here without him, what she did, how she studied. The girl reminded her beloved that during the time he served in the army, she had already graduated from school, and now nothing prevents them from getting married and living in their own pleasure. They want to have children. They just want to live for a couple of years. Misha, in response to her words, happily laughed and grabbed Mila by the hand. Sometimes, when he was in the army, he was covered in black despair, and he thought that Mila would not wait for him. In his dream, he saw her with other guys, and she smiled at him, behaved modestly, lured him with a glance. After these dreams, he woke up all in cold sweat, and for a long time convinced himself that it was just a nightmare. And the real Mila, from flesh and blood, is waiting for him and loves him, and never changes anyone. And here he is, and can see in his eyes, and her shining eyes from their meeting, and her full pink lips, and her smile, and her thin figure, wrapped in the first twilight. Ah, how good was Luda! Michael did not suffer, bowed down and gently kissed the girl in the lips. She did not leave, but only breathed happily and hugged him with her hands. Misha experienced an unearthly bliss in these moments. Young people agreed to solve the issue of the date of the wedding tomorrow, and Misha personally took the girl home. It was too late, and it was not worth walking in the dark. When Mikhail returned to his home, his friends and friends were waiting for him there. Some were at school, some were just neighbors. Together with the guys, the young man drank a little. At first a little, then more, and then a little more. After a couple of hours, Misha, who had been dating alcohol for almost a year, was already very sober, and he did not like this feeling. Thinking that tomorrow his fiancé would say, when he saw him in such a bad shape, Misha went outside. so that the night coolness would help him get back to his senses as soon as possible. The man came up to the stove, noted that he had a bad cough, and he needed to be treated urgently, and began to look at the stars, which were lit in the dark sky. Did his dreams come true? And soon he will also look at the stars only with his wife. How happy he is! There can be no one happier than him. But under this black sky, Misha was not alone. He just didn't notice a figure in the dark, which was standing at the corner of the house and watching him carefully. It was a short and wide-billed girl, rather full than just big, with small features of the face, and all some kind of unshaken, unsympathetic. Something even repulsive. The lips of the stranger were curved by an evil smile, and the eyes looked at the bear without a break. It was Natasha, a local girl. The girl was in a state of lack of kindness, compassion, and conscience. She was not ashamed to cause pain and anger to everyone who had the misfortune to face her. And when she was being humiliated for this reason, she replied, "But not everyone is kind and beautiful. I am not beautiful. So what? I will never see my piece of happiness? Do not be offended if you share your happiness with me. Nothing will happen to you." Natalia was all over the place. Envy, evil, unkind. And now, with terrible force, she bit her lips all night long, looking at how the happiness of Misha and Mila shines. She hated, just hated, easy communication and cheerful Lyudmila. After all, she had what Natalia always wanted to have. She had both appearance and beauty, and internal, and she had a boyfriend and several girlfriends. All this burned Natasha from the inside, as if with fire. She was completely confused. How could it happen that she wants, but cannot go out with people? They avoid her, as if she was a scoundrel. And this girl barely touched her, so her threshold is already crowded with such a handsome man. And decided that Natasha was scared to take revenge on people for something that was used for mutual respect and love. The most desirable prize for the Lyudmila was, of course, Misha, and it was on him that Natalia aimed now. She did not know how to achieve her own, but still did not leave the girl with hope that she would be able to, that she would break this situation, that she would come up with some next trick or evil, and will destroy the happiness of others. Oh, it was just a dream for Natalia. Not so much to get Mikhail forever, but to watch how this beautiful girl is filled with tears of grief and jealousy. If Natasha herself is not beautiful, it does not mean that pretty guys like Mikhail should not look at her. And now she will prove to everyone that she is not a whore, that she can also like. And what will have to be done is always, trick and turn out. So it's the 10th thing. The main thing is the result. Misha stood, dreaming about something of his own and looking at the stars, when from the corner of the house heard a quiet, muffled, but clearly human tone. Strange, who could it be at such a late time? As far as Mikhail remembered, all the comrades have already left for home, and there should have been no one here. The guy looked around, and he thought that somewhere nearby, where he heard the sound, something was moving. But he couldn't be sure, the alcohol effect said. But the tone was repeated, this time more clearly and louder. He encouraged the young man to act. "Who is here?" Michael asked, regretting that he didn't have a flashlight with him. "What happened?" From the darkness, a weak noise was heard, and then a hoarse voice spoke out loud. "It's me. I turned my leg. I can't walk. It hurts." "Who am I?" the guy asked again, although the voice seemed to him vaguely familiar. But he had not been in his native village for so long that he could not immediately remember the owner of the voice. "I am Natasha. You don't remember?" As if the girl was sincerely surprised. "We studied together." Yes, now Misha remembered her. A peculiar girl. You can't expect a word of kindness from her. She will do the nasty things and rejoice. But what is she doing here? And also in the deep night. Why did she come here? He asked this question to her in silence, and the girl answered that she was with his friends. This surprised the guy even more. Natasha never had friends and friends. And the guy, as Misha knew, too. It was strange to him what the girl was doing here, now, with his friends. But that's the thing. You can't say anything for a glance. Then he tried to find out for a long time what happened to her leg. He came up to Natalia sitting in the grass and saw that she was dressed very easily. The night cold probably took the girl to her bones. Not thinking about what she was doing, Misha took off his jacket and gave it to the person who got into trouble. Meanwhile, he started to examine Natalia's leg. The leg looked quite healthy, but the girl was screaming so much when she touched her right palm that he decided not to touch anything yet. What if he only makes it worse? No, we need a doctor here. Where can we find him? In the village and at night. In the end, Misha made a decision that changed his whole life. He decided that it was not appropriate to leave a girl on the street, even if she didn't like her personally. And since Natasha didn't go near the house and other volunteers were not around, he helped her get up and carefully walked home. When Misha's strong hands touched her body, Natasha seemed to wake up from her sleep, not forgetting to pretend that it was painful for her to step on a completely healthy leg. The girl was sad, wailing, and the plan in her head changed. She noted that Misha was drunk, which means he would become a light prey for her charm. Of course, it was unfair to him. But Natasha was happy that Mila and Misha had a car and a small cart. She should be happy too. Otherwise, it's unfair, isn't it? With great effort, Misha brought the guest into the house and put her on the couch. The parents slept in their room, and the young man thought about what to do with Natasha now. It is impossible to leave her with yourself. It is impossible to send her home. So what to do with her, in fact? Misha looked out the window. There was an invisible ink blot. There was nothing to think about to let the sick girl go alone. And it's not an easy task to bring her home. He can't do it alone. And there is no one to call for help. What? I'm causing you inconvenience? As if feeling his doubts, Natasha's voice came from the couch. If necessary, I can leave. Although where should I go? Sit down already. Misha, didn't call too friendly. Why did you stay so late? I wanted to see you. Without any excuses, Natalia answered, pulling the patient's leg closer to him. You have been absent in the village for so long. I missed you. I have no right to do this, do I? Misha only shook his head skeptically and began to think again about where to take him as a night guest. Everything turned out so that he had to leave her with him until morning. And there he will find someone to call for help. Misha did not care about Natasha. Did you miss me? At first, the young man thought that he had heard. Well, she asked stupid things. Mikhail indignantly waved his head and noticed how tears were splashing in Natasha's eyes. Well, I asked you in a normal way, and you immediately waved your head as if you wanted it to come off. I know that you and Milka love each other, and that you will call her to marry you, and that she has already prepared the dress. I know everything. I meant everything for us, for our village. Did you miss the army or not? Misha slowly nodded his head. Yes, it turned out to be ugly. He misunderstood the girl, so he offended her. To smooth out his guilt and show that he does not hold a grudge against Natasha, Misha sat on the edge of the sofa and suggested to make hot tea quickly because the girl most likely froze in the yard. Natasha gladly agreed, and soon before them already steamed porcelain teapot. Young people drank a burning drink, chatted, remembered school and childhood, and at some point, Misha began to perceive everything that was happening so calmly, as if he was not sitting with Natasha, who did not like and even was afraid, and with his beloved Milka, and they both drink tea, and the whole life is ahead. The tall, strong and sluggish Misha after the second cup of tea was already sleepy, and did not even realize how he was without a shirt and a pants, right on the pillow and under the blanket. And next to him was Natalia, who no one actually invited. But she was here, big, loose. All of this is not right and not right. And when she kissed Misha, he tried to object, but not for long. All the objections of the young man Natalia deafened with kisses and made Misha forget about everything. The guy woke up in the morning. Through the gray fog of dawn, he looked at the girl lying on the next pillow and fainted in horror. Natasha? Where is Natasha from? How could she be here? Memories of the events of last night flowed into my head like a wave on the sandy shore. What is it that she is with him? That he is with her? Mila? How nice he is. What is it? What will happen to them now? Michael jumped up like it was scary and unpleasant to even think about this Mikhail, because he loved only one Lyudmila, his future wife. Meanwhile, Natasha woke up and looked at him with her green eyes. It seemed that in the twilight they shone like a cat. But Misha had no time to look at the eyes of this girl. "Get up," he said, whispered, not to wake up the parents in the next room, "and quickly dress up. Don't lie down. Do something. Something like Frozen." But the girl was not even going to hide what happened this hour. "Why should I be silent? You, my dear, have made me disappear. And now we have one road. So, is the advice all? Why are you looking at me like you saw for the first time? At night, you went wrong. And now here it is. Now we'll talk in a different way." Misha was looking at himself and couldn't understand what was going on. What happened to him? The sky collapsed on the ground. What will happen now? How to silence this half-witted woman and to take her out of the house so that no one would see her? Michael looked out the window. It was already dawn. Early, raw, summer. The young man heard the parents coming behind the wall. This mother was preparing to go to give the cow to the cattle, and the father was going to go to the haystack. The parents did not want to go into the room to the son, apparently suspecting that after yesterday's visits, Misha will sleep for a long time. But sooner or later, they will understand that he is not alone. And what will happen next? It's scary to think. Meanwhile, it seems that Natasha did not feel any threats of conscience. The girl got up, as it should be, stretched out, walked through the room in which her mother was born, and hurriedly threw on herself some clothes. Then, before Michael managed to hit her, the girl pulled the door of his room and was like this. While Misha was coming to his senses, Natasha walked through a small hall and without asking appeared in front of her mother and father, who, when they saw the girl, were just stunned. "Hello," she greeted them, heading further into the yard. Misha was already running after her. Now Natasha will step on the threshold, and it will be too late. Mikhail's house was on the crossroads, and many people passed by it. He managed to intercept the girl on the very threshold and put her back in the room where his parents were sitting. At the same time, Natasha did not think to resist and only laughed loudly. "Well, what's wrong with you, Misha?" She was touching the guy. "You weren't so brave last night, and now you're afraid? Why are you afraid? That your Milka will find out that you became a man not with her, but with me? And who told me so many compliments on Gavril last night? And who was so affectionate, so passionate, so strong, so—" "Shut up." Misha barely grumbled so loudly with tears in his eyes that even his mom and dad were shocked. "I didn't tell you anything and didn't promise anything, especially since I was drunk. I don't remember anything. And you just made it all up by accident, so that I and you, so that we—" Misha's parents were sitting, not alive and not dead. They already realized that something terrible had happened, that not only it threatens to tear apart the long-standing, gentle relationship of Mikhail and Lyudmila, but also to deprive their sons of everything. What did they hope for? Home, family, business. It was a discovery of all kinds of people, and it was it that scared these people now. Meanwhile, Natasha calmly sat down on the chair and moved a vase with cookies to her, which was on the edge of a snow-white, starched. She already realized that Misha depends on her completely and therefore will not resist. The girl was determined to tear off any price of such a groom. And the fact that she would make him tear off his heart so pleasant, and the desired relationship with Mila was just a great bonus. Natalia was pleased to know that at least someone in this world would suffer as she herself used to suffer when no one of the boys paid attention to her. Now she can take revenge with one blow to all those who laughed, teased, demonstratively did not notice, and in general pretended that her, Natasha, does not exist in this world. So her hour came. Misha did not know how to be and what to say, not only Natasha, but even his own parents, who looked at their son with complete misunderstanding of what was happening. They did not know what Mikhail had thought and how this lush-bred girl was in his bed, but they realized that their son didn't want that either. And if he wanted it, it's not the way it should have been. I love Mila. I found the strength to talk to Misha, looking straight into Natalia's face. And only her. And I just don't love you. What's so strange about that? You don't love her? The girl suddenly agreed with him. But that night he spent with me. Not with her so-called beloved. It doesn't matter. It just happened. The guy started to justify himself, but he was disappointed when he saw how ridiculous Natalia looked at him. Maybe it doesn't matter for you. But what will your Mila say about this? She will surely like the fact that her fiancé drags everyone who turned his back on her into his bed. Is that so? Or not? Huh. Mishka, you won't dare. You just won't dare tell her that you made me, that we. His girlfriend interrupted him and laughed again. It seemed like the windows in the house were shaking with evil. Why don't you marry me? Why am I so bad to you? I'll be a good wife. I'll become a great mother. I'll be faithful. I won't hurt you and your old men. Why are you all turning your noses at me? I don't understand. Why do I have to be chosen by Milka and other guys, but I'm not? Misha's parents finally understood everything and started trying to interfere in this unusual conversation. But Natasha stopped all attempts to calm her down and change the subject. Mikhail realized that it would not be easy to get rid of the girl, and that it was absolutely irrelevant how he would bring Natasha out of his house. The vicious and vengeful girl would not be silent, and by the evening, the human curse would bring to his bride what happened here, and then they would decorate it. But will he forgive his Lyudmila for such a minute weakness? It is absolutely unknown. Therefore, Misha decided that no matter what, he had to get Natasha out of here right now, and then consult with his parents how to say to Mila that he, Misha, was a weak man. Natalia, meanwhile, switched attention from Mikhail to his parents and turned to them directly. Why are you silent? Don't you see that your son has done this at night? He humiliated a decent girl, and now he's in the bushes. Who will take me, so spoiled, if not him? Now he has only one way. If he resists, I will go to the district office and write a letter about what he raped on me. The parents of the bear heard the girl, but at the same time they did not hear. They could not understand why their son, who was hardly a child, was wholeheartedly in love with a pretty neighbor from home opposite, allowed such a situation. Then the father, shouting from frustration, waved his hand, got up on his feet, and after making a sign for his wife to follow him, he slowly went out of the house. Misha was watching over his parents. He realized that he had no one to rely on. He had to deal with the fact that he was a king. For a while Misha and Natasha were silent, looking anywhere, but not at each other. Then the girl realized that there was nothing good for Mikhail and went back to the attack. How do you want to confess to Milka? What will you tell her? Or it's better to do it to me, on your bride's rights? Natasha didn't slip away that she literally cut Misha off from these words. But she had a plan. The girl continued to enjoy the torment of the defeated enemy, and even more pleasure was given to her by the thought of what Lyudmila would feel when she would find out and see her with Misha. Hurry up. Misha was no longer laughing. He was wandering around the room and sometimes looked at Natasha, who had fallen on the chair at the entrance. What to do? To confess to Mila and hope that she will forgive something? And if not, what if she leaves him? Misha made a decision and rushed to Natasha in the pursuit of last hope. Come on, you keep silent. What do you want? Money? I'll give. Everything I can give. Just shut up, don't say anything to her, or I'll die. Just shut up, please. But Natasha looked at him with such a wild askew that he unknowingly moved away from the girl. That's how you spoke, Miss Hanya. Where were your words and requests before, when you literally didn't notice me, when I was invisible to you? No, now don't ask me anything, you won't ask anyway. You marry me, and Milka will go for a walk at our wedding. Well, or she won't go for a walk if she doesn't want to. But you've disowned me, in either the wedding, or you'll go to jail to rot. I'll take care of that. But I don't love you, Misha said in despair, but his voice drowned in the laughter of the girl. But I love you, Natasha suddenly admitted. I've been in love for a long time. Read from school. And you only saw your Milka all the time in front of your eyes. You didn't notice me. And now you see how everything turned. It's my turn to rejoice, Mishenka. Only mine. That's it. I told you everything. Bye. I'll send my parents soon. And don't think, Mishka. Don't say no. Natasha left the room, and Mikhail fell on the chair, dropping his head on his hand. What should he do now? How to be? Meanwhile, Lyudmila didn't know what battles were unfolding only a few dozen meters away from her. She got up in the most excellent mood, had breakfast, combed her hair, and started to finish her wedding dress. All that was left was to finish her sleeves and make a lace coat. Well, my girl, have you waited long? She asked, caressingly stroking the long hair of Milka. Do you regret that you are getting married so early? That you did not get education? That you will soon become a family woman? Yes, what a regret, Mom. Lyudmila threw her eyes at her. I will be the happiest bride, and we will live with Mishka next to each other. We will not run away from you. No, don't twist, and I am very glad that everything happened exactly like this with us. Mom sighed quietly and hurried out, leaving her alone with her. She understood well that now a young girl feels, because once she was also married by love. Oh, how long it was, how years flew by, how the world around her changed. But they managed to convey their feelings with Pavel over the years. Let her daughter also be lucky. 3 hours of work, and here. The dress already looks like it should. Just an ideal wedding dress, which will soon have to be decorated by the most beautiful bride in the whole world. Mila decided that enough is enough for today, and she can visit her fiancé. It was strange to her that from the very early morning, despite her habit, Misha did not come to her. Mila stepped over the threshold of the house and went into the garden. Did the big strawberry on the bushes already ripen? I also looked into the house that was intended for them and Misha. While I was walking around the rooms, I decided to fix the household a little here and stayed for 2 hours. Deep down, I was waiting for Misha to come himself, the first one. But I didn't wait long. I decided that it would be enough to wait, and I needed to go to him. What if he just wasn't well after yesterday? Mila climbed up to the porch of such a familiar and almost native house. She raised her hand to the tight closed door to push her, and suddenly heard voices. She stopped for a minute, listened, and suddenly, closing her mouth with her hand, strongly leaned against the wall next to the door. Only one thought was spinning in the girl's head. How could he? How could Misha? Meanwhile, in the house at that time, the future brides were sitting at the common table. Natasha's parents and Misha's parents. The guests arrived to them recently, but already quite tired of their daughters. Natasha did not regret the paint, writing to them how he promised Mikhail the best life at night, how he persuaded, how he begged, how he asked and promised to marry her, Natasha, if she agrees to be with him. And now everything is denied and denied. Natasha's parents didn't care about her daughter. They saw that she was ugly, that she was unkind, that she was mean and evil. So she just couldn't imagine a better chance to marry. Besides, their family was also poor. They could afford to give away the yard to the young, build a house, and to give away some animals for the household. So from this side, everything should be fine with them. They understood, of course, that the future son-in-law would rely on them with all his hands and legs. After all, everyone in the village knew that they loved each other with love. In this case, they also had the arguments of the stock. Let's go, otherwise, to the district office together with the daughter. We will glorify both Misha and his parents for the whole village. Therefore, either the village council or the district office. That's the choice without a choice. Misha got after his short weakness. Michael's parents, when they found out that their son would not be left without property and without a household even in the marriage with Natasha, had a lot of fun. They liked a kind and modest Lyudmila. But since that's the case, why not marry Natasha's son? After all, her parents clearly made it clear what they are all threatened with refusal. Of course, you can't order the heart. But Misha also has to understand and answer for his actions. He pulled Natasha into bed, so he can marry her now. And there is no excuse for the man who decided to start close relations with the woman and now tries to get away in the bushes and tells what he loves to another. I will never love Natasha. He hummed to himself, Mikhail, looking down and not raising his eyes at the gathered. I want to marry Mila. And when you drag my daughter to bed, what did you think? Natalia's father got angry, looking at her future son-in-law, barely with hatred. Natasha, sitting on a chair near her parents, celebrated and did not even try to hide it. She felt that everything would turn out exactly as she wanted. And this young man was led by a cat to her in the arch, and their fate will be fulfilled. After all, she managed to take advantage of the moment that fate gave her. Natasha's mother was also very happy with the situation. It was a kind-hearted, red-faced woman who understood perfectly that otherwise there was no chance of a profitable marriage for the girl. And so it turns out that the next week Misha and Natasha will get married. This is what will happen. That they made their girl a good girl. And there they will be patient and love each other. And they will give good dowry for their daughter. And they will not regret it if they now press their authority on their son and force him to go to the village council with Natalia. Only one person, Misha, felt that his life was being ruined. The young man was in despair, but he understood that he had already done enough and could not fix it. And how will he fix it? I doubt that when Lyudmila finds out about everything, she will talk to him in general. She is proud, beautiful, and will not let her on the threshold. And she will be right. He ruined his life. He ruined it. She lied to me that it was difficult and painful for her to walk. Misha still did not raise his eyes at his parents. I did not want to sleep with her. She did everything herself. No, good people, but listen to me. Natasha's mother hit him in the face with her hands. What is he doing? What is he doing? As you wish. With these words, she turned to the sitting father of Mikhail. And I give him the last chance. The very last. Decide already. Will there be a wedding? Or not? And I'll go to the district office. He will glorify my girl for the whole block. What is going on? The mother and father of the young boy looked at each other. They lived together for quite some time, to understand each other literally half-heartedly. They both knew that there was no way to avoid this wedding. And Lyudmila, as soon as she finds out, will definitely refuse. And Natasha will not be silent. And Misha? What Misha? It was necessary to think about who to marry before. And now, he had no choice. The people who would tell him to marry would say, now it will be like this. Otherwise, you won't be able to take the shame in the village. And here, the option is favorable, stable. The family is rich and generous. They won't hurt their son. The father shook his head firmly, looked at the complaint of the mother's son, and also nodded. He understood, Misha, that the parents had decided everything for him. And for Lyudmila too, it turns out. And ran out of the house, so as not to cry in front of everyone. The last thing that stood before his eyes was the face of Natasha. Self-satisfied, predatory, insatiable. After all, the witch achieved what she wanted. She destroyed them with Lyudmila's love, made with cunning what could not be done directly. On the porch, Misha literally ran into a crowd that stood there and closed his face with his hands. It was clear that the girl was going to run away from here, but she couldn't, so she stayed on the steps, as if pierced with nails. Mila, Misha stretched out his hands to her, so familiar, so family-like. He wanted to explain everything to her, hug her, cry, or maybe they'll come up with something together. But no, the eyes of the cute were red from tears, and the voice is colder than ice on the river in winter. Don't you dare touch me. Not about you and now. Go, whoever you caressed at night, then love, said his cut-off, turned around and went away on the street to his house. Misha did not catch up with the girl. He just sat in the dust, where he stood, and filled with tears. He thought that men don't cry for so many years. And it turned out like this. Not that they cry, but even cry. Ah, Zasnoba left. What a pity. It was carried out from behind. And Misha understood who could say it. Natalia. She left the house after him and watched the entire scene of Mikhail's explanation to his fiancé. Well, it's okay. We'll invite her to our wedding. There you look and pick up a groom for yourself. Misha didn't say anything to Natalia, but just got up and went to the garden. He wanted to be alone. The news spread like a hurricane in the village. Mila gave Misha a leave because she found out that he spent the night with Natasha. And by the time Natasha came, Mikhail's parents had already sent a squad to cover up the sin faster. The locals discussed this story at every corner, and everyone agreed that Misha was a round fool who changed such a girl as Mila to a girl like Natasha. But what can you do? Do your thing, marry her. Mila herself almost didn't hear these curses. When she came back home on that fateful day, she immediately discussed everything with her father and mother. They, of course, sympathized with the daughter from the bottom of their hearts, but also advised each other to be happy that everything had been revealed before the wedding. Otherwise, the young would not have lived calmly. Their rumors would have been overcome. And so, what is done is done. We need to live on. Lyudmila made a quick decision. Literally in one day. It was simply unbearable for the girl to stay in her native village. And to watch the wedding dress prepared every day was also. And that's why she decided to leave. And not somewhere else, but to the city. Far away from here, far away from memories, far away from Natasha and Misha, who betrayed her. The girl quickly packed her things in a sports bag, asked her father to take her to the area to the bus station, and by the evening she was in the city. Mikhail's number had to be simply blocked after that. How he began to call her every few minutes and demand to talk to him. But Mila thought that she had nothing to talk about. At first, the girl rented an apartment for the money that her parents gave her and decided to start a new life, leaving the past in the past. The next few years flew by unnoticed for all the participants of this story. Lyudmila prepared and entered the university. As she had dreamed before, she decided that if she couldn't keep her past and there was no need to sit in the village without a way out, it would be better to settle her life now, while she was young and healthy. The girl chose an exclusively male geochemical faculty and didn't get it wrong. First of all, she didn't have a fight against her fans. She was not only smart, but beautiful, and the presence of light sadness in her character attracted even more men to her. And secondly, Mila managed to see the world and fly around the geology expedition on a helicopter for more than 1,000 kilometers. She made a career in this industry, met her future husband Roman in one of the expeditions, and returned to the already pregnant regional city. They were waiting for the firstborn, the boy. It cannot be said that Mila never missed the past life and didn't remember Michael. Still, he was her first love. But everything was simple with Roman, pleasant and understandable, although not at all like it was with Misha. They only learned to love each other, learned to be together, sought to be together, and discuss what they needed in their relationship to improve. In short, they had to do it themselves, what with Michael turned out to be like on its own. But Mila didn't regret anything. She just didn't doubt the novel. He was a wonderful husband and became a wonderful father for their white-haired, smiling boy. The parents of Lyudmila didn't tell anything to their daughter about her ex-husband-in-law, at her own insistent request. Mila quite consciously decided to cut off all contacts with the past and didn't try to know anything about Misha. She couldn't be happy for him, and she just didn't want to be mean. And why? He made his own choice. He turned out to be like that. Lyudmila didn't visit her mom and dad at all, preferring to invite them to visit her. Mila and Roma bought and furnished a great 3-room apartment in the district center. Her parents were placed there when they came to visit their granddaughter and daughter. They were very happy to see that Mila was happy with Roma, with calm and unwavering happiness. They loved their little grandson and carried him. Everyone hinted at the fact that it would be possible to go for the second one, but the young ones were still absent. In short, it was an ordinary family life with all its ups and downs. But life of Mikhail was completely different. He did marry Natasha, just because he wasn't chosen. On the eve of this wedding, Misha wanted to hang himself, but his mother found him in the barn when he was just getting up on the stool. He threw a thick rope behind the dumpster. After receiving a confession and a insistent request not to disgrace his old people in front of the neighbors, Misha cruelly agreed to participate in the farce, under the name of a marriage proposal, and kept his word. They didn't make up with Natasha. Mikhail moved to his newlywed's house to live, and there her parents didn't let the guy relax for a minute. He was constantly doing something in the household, either in the house, or in the garden, At the same time, Misha was not forgotten to say that he was turning his nose from his young wife, but the one who had the answer had one thing in mind. And I warned everyone. I love another. I will never love this one. This answer is for the angry, newly baked doughs and, most of all, for Natasha. In her dreams, they lived happily and together with Misha. They loved each other, and the whole village envied them. And it turned out that the husband did not even want to sleep with her in one bed. What can we say about tender feelings? Misha seemed frozen as ice cream. He didn't laugh, didn't grieve, didn't wish anything or anyone. He just didn't react to Natasha or her parents. But instead, the young man started drinking a lot. At first, every weekend Misha would go to the bottle of moonshine from the grave of his grandmother Masha, which she lived next door, then in the evenings. And then he started drinking all the time, without thinking about what he was doing to himself. Then Natalia found out what the funtlich was. The drunk husband called her the last words, scolded, threatened to lay hands on himself, and said a lot of other things. Even the interference of parents did not always help in such cases. Only when she woke up in the morning, Misha hurried to the old woman for a new portion, and everything was repeated from the beginning. Especially Natasha was angry at the fact that Misha was drunk and saw Lyudmila everywhere. He remembered her and called her. He called her by the name of everyone who entered the house. And very soon rumors about this spread throughout the village. When Natasha even went out to the village, she thought that the neighbors were poking their fingers at her and laughing. And what do you hide in the village? It was no secret to anyone what exactly way Natasha got Misha married. And all of them were friendly to the deceived and unhappy man. Natalia became even more. This event caused a stir of excitement both for the young wife and for her parents. When Natalia was sure that she would have a child, it seemed that with the help of the baby she would be able to turn Mikhail's attitude towards herself, and there, even to a normal family, not far away. But alas, Misha was completely not in the mood to be the father of any children, except those he wanted from Mila. When Natasha with shining eyes told this news to her husband, he didn't even want to react to it. Mikhail just got a little bit angry and after half an hour he was already sitting on the ground with another bottle in his hands. It didn't upset Natalia as much as it made her angry and upset. She ran out of the house and ran straight to Misha on the street, not paying attention to that people are passing by their fences. How shameless you are. You are a senseless scoundrel. Your wife is telling you that your child is waiting for you. Your child, by the way. And you are reacting like this? There is no justice in the world. Natasha did not expect that Mikhail would answer her. But he, having lost his tanned hand, spoke clearly and loudly. When you were and I barely forced myself to go to bed, I knew that I loved another. I knew that I didn't need you. So now go, you fatso, you won't have another chance. And you will grow your own atrociousness. I don't need a child from such a stupid woman. Behind the fence, behind the hee-hee-cali, and behind the hula-hula-cali. Natasha turned around and saw that there were at least 5 people standing there. The senior students returned home from the second shift. Now the village's spleet will not be able to escape. Having spat on the ground from the ambush, Natasha ran to the house as soon as possible. Natasha's pregnancy went badly. She was constantly nervous. Her father was already threatening Mikhail, and the mother almost grabbed her son-in-law. But everything was like a gush of water. I warned him. He answered calmly, that we should not. That we will not have anything with Natasha. You wanted it yourself. You insisted on it. Now you have to be patient. And what are you going to do to me? Kick me out? At least for an hour. But Natalia's parents didn't want such a fate for their daughter, and they were patient. They understood deep down that they had no choice, and that they were really to blame for what was happening. Natasha tried to find a way to approach her husband, with both affection and tenderness, with both strength and strength. But she couldn't do anything. Mikhail was still as cold as before. He didn't even soften a man's heart. He didn't want this boy. And then he didn't feel any special feelings when he was given a squeaky screwdriver. His parents were happy that they became a grandmother and a grandfather, but he didn't care. Inside, Misha felt such a ringing emptiness that he was sometimes scared. Mikhail's only clear desire was to see Mila and find out that she was fine. But alas, she didn't answer his calls at first, and then just changed the number. And her parents began to bypass the 10th road, which was not taken, and refused to cross it with at least a word. Misha suffered more from such silence than from any other life-threatening trouble. He thought that he would find out that Mila was all right, that she was well off and successful, and that the mountain would literally fall off his shoulders. But no one was in a hurry to calm down the man, and he was forced to struggle day and night against the feelings he had created. Over the years of such a life with a hated wife and an unloved child, Misha lost weight, dried out, and turned black. The man was irritated by the screams of the baby, an ever-tiring, unruly wife, who after the birth of the baby was even more disheveled, full of uncertainty in the family, and the absence of even one living soul for the sake of being able to cry and complain. And in the dream, almost every day, Anna Lyudmila came to Misha. He saw her judging gaze, felt the smoothness of her skin, felt the smell of her hair. With the first roosters, the sleep spread, and Misha for the whole day seemed to fall into oblivion, to drown it with only a bottle of a strong, hot drink. This lifestyle did not slow down the health of a man. If Misha returned from the army completely cheerful and strong, then now he was a pathetic spectacle. More and more often he was beaten in the side, and less strength was even for the simplest work in the yard. But this situation of things did not bother Michael at all. On the contrary, he was happy with him. He just did not see the point of living in the world, since he was surrounded by only unloved and unnecessary people. His parents were worried, who could not see how slowly but surely their son, who was only 26 years old, died. They made Michael visit a doctor, who immediately sent the direction to the district hospital. From there, Misha was transferred to the city station in the district city because his business turned out to be even worse than it was expected at the first inspection. In the hospital, Misha liked it very much. It was warm, clean, the wife and child were not taken, and you could think and dream about the infinity of what could be with them now. Misha understood that you won't be full of dreams alone, but it was the only thing he had left. Meanwhile, Mila was also very worried. Her beloved husband managed to raise suspicions about the appendicitis from the next trip, which, at the very near consideration, was already almost a burst appendix. Therefore, the novel was taken immediately, with the help of an ambulance. And now Mila wandered around the corridors of the regional hospital, in an attempt to find the surgical department where Roman was lying after the operation. Mila was so busy thinking about home affairs and the list of drugs that she had to give to her husband that she was busy and missed the right turn. Instead of the surgical department, a young woman got into the hippocampus, but she still didn't know about it. Seeing the rooms with numbers on both sides of her head, Mila started to look for the right room for her. She knew that after the intensive therapy room, she was transferred to the fourth room and started to look for the right room. In order to find the right room, she even had to go further from the entrance and turn around the corner. Only there, at the very end of the room, Mila was lucky enough to find the right room. Lyudmila pressed the button and entered the light, clean room, covered in the sunlight that fell from the windows that were washed away. She greeted him loudly and began to look around the beds to understand as soon as possible what bed her husband was lying on. But when Roma ran to look, he was not found. Mila was ready to call him. How suddenly her eyes met the patient's eyes, lying on the third bed on the right, and she forgot where she was going. Her heart was beating somewhere in her throat, and the earth was falling off her feet. She looked at her with strange, dry, and swollen face. She was looking at her with those eyes that she would recognize from 1,000. Misha. But what is he doing here? Why is he here? Mila. An unwavering voice, trembling and fragile, heard. Malachka. Mila, are you here? Mila. Mikhail tried to get up, but his legs didn't listen. Then he stretched his arms to her, with the unconscious movement that makes a person extremely desperate. And Mila couldn't leave as she was going to. She stood in the middle of the room and looked at Misha. In her memory, everything was alive again. And even that very fateful morning, when she came home to him and heard the conversation standing on the porch of his house, too, Mila grumbled and felt that her head was spinning. No, no, you have to run away from here, never to see him again, not hear him, not know anything about him. But Michael already got up from his bed and now looked at her from the height of his height. Lyudmila didn't hold back and accepted his offer to go to the corridor to the couch and talk there. The young woman was not very multilingual. She got married, got higher education, has a child who turned 1 year old. Now she is sitting with her nanny, and she came to her husband to visit after the surgery. They live great, their own apartment, no problem. Misha listened to every word of hers greedily. Exactly, the traveler drank water in the desert. It seemed he wanted to absorb the closeness of Mila with all his skin, with the entire surface of the body. She was there is a child, also a son, was born 9 months after the wedding. Loud, fast, poorly managed boy, almost listens to no one, and his father's authority is not recognized at all. In other words, life is like life, heal a little and back again. I have to go, said Mila, getting up from the couch. I'll go look for the right department. Yes, of course. Mikhail called out with an echo, also getting up. The young woman quickly walked away from him along the corridor, into her happy and well-off life, where her beloved husband and beloved son were waiting for her. Mila still found the right turn and visited Romana. She sat with him for quite a long time, almost an hour and a half, and leaving, gently kissed her husband in the lips. Let her know him not all her life, like she knew Mikhail. but he never betrayed her. After leaving the hospital, Mila called a taxi and hurried home, to where the old man waiting for her never went, Yura. Mila never found out that Misha didn't quit the regional hospital. 2 days after they met by accident in the long, winding corridors of the stationery, he felt bad, and he was not saved. She let herself not be interested in the life of her ex-lover. Seeing him then, she was convinced that such memories would only protect the heart. But they don't let you be happy. A week later, she met her beloved Roman at home. And 3 more days later, she realized that she was pregnant again. Uzi soon showed that this time her husband was waiting for a girl. Mila often thanked fate for allowing her to meet with Roma and give birth to her babies when she needed a miracle the most. But now, the young woman was sure that miracles on earth exist,